तपस्वाध्याय शुश्रूषा कृष्णपूजारतं मुनिम् विश्वेशमिष्टदं वन्दे परिव्राट् चक्रवर्तिनम्। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः. हरि ओम to all. Welcome back to Bhagavad Gita session. Today we are going to look at Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 27. In the previous verse we saw Krishna gave a logical fallback argument. Even if one assumes birth and death as real, grief is still not justified. Now, in this verse, Krishna strengthens that argument further. He says, birth and death are not accidents, they are inevitable laws of existence. Let us look at the verse first. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 27. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu dhruvam janma mrutasya cha tasmadapariharyerthe natvam shocitumarhasi. Jatasya, of one who is born. He, indeed. Dhruvaha, certain or definite. Mrityuhu, death. Dhruvam, certain. Janma, birth. Mritasya, of one who has died. Cha, and tasmat, therefore. Apariharye, unavoidable. Arthe, matter or situation, or in this matter or in this situation. Na, not. Tvam, you. Shochitum, to grieve. Arhasi, you should. Simple meaning of this verse: for one who is born, death is certain. And for one who has died, birth is certain. Therefore, you should not grieve over what is unavoidable. Let us look at the deeper explanation of this verse. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu. For one who is born, death is certain. Krishna stating a universal truth here. Anything that is born must change and must end. Death is not possibility, it is certainty. That is why he says, Jatasyehi dhruvo mrityuhu. For one who is born, death is certain. Not only death, dhruvam janma mrutasya cha. For one who has died, birth is also certain. Death is not the end. It is a transition. After the death, also existence continues. Another birth follows. So, life moves in a cycle. Birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. So, Dhruvam Janma Mrutasya cha. For one who has died, birth is also certainty. Tasmat. Therefore, Krishna now draws the conclusion here. This is not emotional advice. It is logical clarity. Tasmat. Therefore, apariharye arthe. In a matter that cannot be avoided. Because birth and death, two are the extreme starting and ending points of our life. Birth and death are natural. Birth and death are inevitable. Birth and death are beyond our control. No one can stop this cycle. So, apariharye arthe, in a matter that cannot be avoided, cannot be controlled, cannot be stopped, there natvam shochitumarhasi. You should not grieve. Why? Because grieving over inevitable does not change the reality. Grieving over the inevitable only increases sufferings. So, understanding this reality reduces unnecessary sorrow. So, in a matter that cannot be avoided, there you should not grieve. Krishna in this verse is not saying do not feel anything. Krishna is saying do not collapse in grief. You can feel anything, but do not collapse in grief over something that is part of the nature. Why Krishna saying this thing time and again? Arjuna is reacting emotionally to death, loss and separation. Krishna brings him back to the reality. This is the law of the life. This is the nature of the life. Everything in the material world follows cycles. Day after the day, night comes. After the night, again day comes. Growth, decay and growth. Birth, death and birth. These are the natural cycles. Resisting these cycles create sufferings. Once you understand the nature of the life, or law of the life, then understanding them creates acceptance. Then you won't cry. What other Acharya saying this in this verse? Shankaracharya ji says, for one who is born, death is certain. For one who dies, birth is certain again. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jatare shayanam. This cycle is inevitable and universal, without exception. Everything that is born must die, and everything that dies will take birth again. This is the natural law governing existence. Since this process cannot be avoided or changed, there is no point in grieving over it. Grief comes from resisting what is unavoidable. So, Krishna teaches, do not grieve over what cannot be prevented. What must happen will happen. Wisdom lies in accepting it, not lamenting it. So, understand it and move on. What Ramanujacharya says, death is inevitable for all that is born, and rebirth is inevitable after the death. What we call birth and death are not absolute beginnings or absolute endings. They are simply changes in condition of something that already exists. For example, yarn becomes cloth, clay becomes pot, then both returns to dust. The substance remains the same, only its form changes. Similarly, the body appears during birth. The body disappears in death. But the underlying reality continues in another form. These are natural and continuous transformations, not total destruction. Since birth and death are unavoidable modifications of existence, it is not wise to grieve over them. So, you have to understand, forms changes, existence continues, and wisdom lies in seeing beyond the change. So, understand and accept it, and don't grieve. What Madhvacharya ji says, he starts with a question: why should one should not grieve? Because Birth and death are part of natural cosmic order. The cycle of birth, death, and rebirth is not accidental. It follows an eternal law governing existence. When we understand that life unfolds according to this cosmic order, delusions disappears. Grief loses its hold. What follows divine order should be understood, not lamented. So, natural things, understand it and don't grieve over it. What Keshava Kashmiriji says, for one who is born, death is certain because the body has fixed lifespan. This lifespan and cycle of birth and death are determined by one's past actions, karma. So, the body comes into existence due to past actions, past karma. Body continues for limited time. Body must eventually perish. This process is unavoidable and governed by karma. Since birth and death of the body are inevitable and determined by natural law, it is not appropriate to grieve over them. So, what is bound by karma must follow its course. So, wisdom lies in accepting it. So, accept it and move on. So, what Krishna saying here? Death is most certain event in life. Everything that is born must die without exception. People see death happening all around them, yet they live as if they are exempt from it. This is the great illusion. There is one story from the Mahabharata beautifully captures this truth. When asked, what is the greatest wonder? Yudhishthira replied, Ahanyahani bhutani gachanti yamalayam sheshasthirattvamichanti kimascharya matapparam. Ahanyahani bhutani gachanti yamalayam. Every day people die and go to the Yama's house. Yet, Sheshaha Sthirattvamichanti. Those who remain think they will live forever. That is a wonder, greatest wonder. Fear of death is natural, even described in yoga philosophy as abhinivesha, instinct to survive. But wisdom begins when we understand death is inevitable life is temporary, and the cycle cannot be avoided. Krishna's message is simple. Do not grieve over what cannot be changed. The greatest ignorance is to deny the death. The beginning of wisdom is to accept it. Krishna has now covered Atma is eternal, higher truth. Even if you are not accepting Atma is eternal, still birth, death is natural. That is the practical truth. Atma is eternal, that is ultimate truth. If you are not accepting that ultimate truth, still birth and death is natural, that is practical truth. From both angles, grief is not justified. Krishna makes the situation very clear. Death is certain for the born, birth is certain after death. This cycle cannot be avoided. So, grieving excessively over it is not wise. Once you understand this, it brings acceptance, brings stability, brings clarity. This advice from the Krishna prepares Arjuna to act without any emotional collapse. What happens next? That we will see in the next session. Until that, Hari Om to all. God bless you all. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah. Sarve santu niramayah. Sarve bhadrani pashyantu. Ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shantihi. Om shantihi. Om shantihi. Om sham.